Hi, I'm Dallas Cothram. I'm the president of Masterplan Texas, one of the families and companies of Milrose. We're one of the newest acquisitions. Our business started in 1981 in Dallas. My father served on the Dallas City Council from 1965 to 1980, and then started this business. Like the other Milrose companies, we do permitting and project management and all manner of expediting, but we also specialize in zoning, and we're working on projects now in more than 20 states and have over the 40 years of our business. We also have a practice that's involved in economic incentives, community engagement, as well as alcohol permitting. So we have a wide range of services, but today I'm going to talk about storage. And our firm has done the most zoning work where it relates to storage, primarily because of the Texas miracle. Really beginning before the Great Recession, we saw a big rush of self-storage projects where people started going to the storage queue. And we've seen more and more of these. We've done them in a lot of different jurisdictions with a lot of different challenges. And so, zoning is the largest barrier to entry in self-storage. So we'd be excited to be able to help you with your projects. Milrose and Masterplan have offices on the East Coast, the West Coast, Chicago, Dallas, and looking at more acquisitions. We're really the only company that provides end-to-end real estate solutions across the nation. By doing so, we're reworking how developers do their business across the United States. We're actively in every single state in the union at this point. So, I thought I'd start with a little bit of an overview of what is driving development in the self-storage place and what do I see as the trends. As I said, the biggest barrier to entry in storage is zoning. So each maybe 1% of the cap rate is worth $1 million to $1.5 million at least upon exit. I would argue that obtaining zoning creates 1 or 2% rate points for you. So, there's a couple $1 million or more that you can earn for yourself. So if you're buying property that's properly zoned for storage, probably one of two things are happening. One, you're overpaying. Somebody else has already reaped that benefit of having the right entitlements. Or two, you're not in a retail trade area. We'll talk a lot about that in just a second and throughout the presentation. So the first thing I think, prior to the pandemic, I really thought the largest factor that was driving development and what we would see in zoning cases is generational change. And we would see certainly boomers and silent generation people before the pandemic were the most likely to be opposed to zoning cases. I would say that's still the case. They're the ones who attend public meetings and things like that. But as it relates, generational change, just as it relates to storage, is a really important topic. You have more and more baby boomers with a lot of affluence. And during the pandemic, they're the ones that drove changes in the housing market. Really from 1980 until the pandemic, the average age of home buyers had remained first-time home buyer ages had remained right around 30. Then it jumped up to 33, and now it's jumped all the way to 37. So people are buying homes later. And then the median age went all the way into the mid-40s. Well, what's fueling that is you've got baby boomers that are buying second homes. So it's a little bit of an irony, maybe it's more of a tragedy, that you have baby boomers able to buy a second home, but Gen Z people and millennials can't afford to buy a first home. So it's a problem, and housing is a real problem. But as it relates to storage, you've got a lot of boomers who have acquired a lot of things that they don't get rid of typically. So they're going to continue to be storage users. Many of these second homes are in areas that have per capita a lot more storage needs, whether it's skiing or outdoor sports or those sorts of things, boats, etc. On the other end, millennials, this group that in particular now they're getting into their 40s, that because they are marrying later, having kids later, and buying a home later, they're staying in apartments longer and renting. So they have more storage needs typically. And they're not escaping apartments as early as people of my generation, like Gen X did. Housing interest rates are higher. People that have good interest rates right now are not stepping out of it. We're going to see they're going to stay in it. First-time home buyers, the National Realtors Association, the less controversial NRA, says that when they studied how long first-time home buyers expect to stay in their homes, it's gotten all the way to 18 years. So you're going to see people staying in their homes longer to take advantage of good interest rates. On the other end, the millennials who were not able to buy a home, and this next generation of Z's, 79% of them are getting help from a parent on down payments. They're also now facing rising rents. So the rent rate is going up as interest rates are going up, and it's going to create increasing problems for them. They're going to have to use more of their income to pay for their rent, which gives them less opportunity to save for a home. So as all this relates to storage, probably that's good news. It's maybe bad for the millennials, but it's good for storage developers, because those areas that have lots of millennials, they will continue to have storage needs as a condition of the market. Okay, so let's talk just about kind of what's going on in the storage market. So for the first time in a long time, storage was down. It was down 8% from 21 to 22. But there were still 2,000 projects done and 350 expansions. That's still a lot of work. And I'd say that 8% really feels more like it's flat than down. What's fueling that? You continue to see people that have moved to a home workspace, and maybe they've made a real office and had to move things. Other people are having a home gym. You still see a lot of people moving to open concept kitchens and eliminating walls where furniture was on it. They don't want to give up on those things. So, and then you got a whole group of people who have retired, and maybe they're rethinking and reimagining their homes. So the fact that people are maybe going to stay in their homes may actually, in the higher interest rates, that's going to be a negative for many of my developer clients, but maybe for storage is some opportunity, because people are going to rethink their existing space rather than buying or just moving to a larger home. So those are all things that are going on. Three, where is storage occurring? What we're seeing here, thanks to our big sort of publicly traded companies, in addition to mom and pops, we're seeing a lot of rethinking. Okay, I've got a first generation non-temperature controlled property. Can I tear it down and build a storage cube? Can I tear part of it down and build a storage cube? Can I tear part of it down and do storage cube and then have an out parcel for maybe a pad user? So we're helping our customers think through repositioning existing assets, or as they acquire new things, thinking of what can they be that they're not today. Remember, just because you go get the zoning change doesn't mean you have to do that development right now. We see some clients harvesting the improved entitlements, but waiting on the improvements until maybe labor or construction costs fall a little bit. So again, there's still a lot of opportunity out there. The 7 or 8 per square feet per capita is still a good rule of thumb. And even in dense areas like Dallas and Houston, in our little part of the world in Texas, those areas have a lot of storage, but even within that area, there are still opportunities that are underserved. Now, may be underserved because the zoning is very hard. We've worked in a lot of jurisdictions where it's a very difficult zoning case, but if you can get it done, you won't face competition there. So sometimes you might think that high barrier to entry creates opportunity. At least I've seen that in my career many times. Okay, and then the last thing that I try to preach on this all the time, storage is a retail land use. And we'll talk later about that cities and community members are having a hard time adjusting to that. So those are sort of the things that I think, big picture wise, that are fueling the economy. So let's move forward and look at, just a little bit about us. We are now a nationwide company. We have offices for Masterplan in Dallas, Austin, Houston, Fort Worth, and Frisco. So, and we work all the way across the state, as well as into sort of the southeast and western portions. Right now, we have zoning cases that relate to storage going in more than 20 states, including California and Hawaii. And I really believe, one of the things that here's kind of a list. Well, why are people hiring us in these places? Why don't they just hire a local land use attorney or let their engineer do it? So, we believe that we have amassed some really talented people. Our Dallas office, which sort of serves as our factory, if you will, or service center, we've got about a dozen people that have been planning directors. We were a really high caliber person that understands the technical aspects of planning, but also we can handle all the complexities of neighborhood group. To my knowledge, I think we're the only firm in the US that has its own in-house PR group. We call it our community engagement group, but we're really a combination of technical with community piece, with political sagacity and lobbying. So we do often team in markets with civil engineers, and that's what produces these good results. We win 2/3 to 80% of the time. I would tell you, I think the national average is around half of zoning cases for storage are approved, and we're trying really difficult ones. So, we've developed different strategies, and we have a lot of our own research that we can provide on cases. The other thing, feel free, we have people who use us just as a resource, where maybe we do a white paper or an opinion paper or deal with the staff to help them think through that. No, the way you're viewing this is pretty antiquated. That's not really the way the industry is working. So, we understand people hire us for results. Okay, I've talked about this throughout my career. I like these next couple of slides because this is how Masterplan conceptualizes zoning. I could start a trip from Dallas to Austin and get there at night. And that's how I see people do zoning cases, is they drive as you drive at night by how far your headlamps, so you're driving 20 yards at a time, 20 yards at a time, and 20 yards and so on. And eventually I do get to Austin, but I don't see what's going on in the wider scheme of things. And I certainly can't see over the horizon. And Masterplan, this is how we think zoning cases work. Good planning is looking over the horizon. So far over the horizon, you really can see over the edge. Because we've done more cases than anyone else, we know the questions before the person knows they're going to ask them. And we will build a presentation with dozens of slides after the official presentation that are just designed to be able to be done during sort of question and answer time. Almost any reasonably good professional person can make a good presentation. I believe zoning cases are won by the answers you give, and we have a huge advantage because we've done the most cases in the United States and we've amassed the most information, and we can bring those to bear for our storage clients, just like we do for multifamily and other segments. So, we're most familiar with the complaints. Another key element in Masterplan is we're organized like a city. We have former city people, whether they're planning directors, engineer, public, works type people. We have those kind of departments within Masterplan. So we match up well with the city because we are organized like a city full of employees who used to work at cities. Three, I think I talked about those facts and studies. We have very proven persuasive arguments that often win difficult storage cases. And we try those on over and over. And then I think the breadth of our experience level I would say is helpful with staffs everywhere, as they can see we know what we're doing. We don't just do storage. We do lots of other types of work. This is just a segment we think we are particularly good at. So here are some of the things. This isn't all of them. This is a good list of often what do we hear when we're out doing these cases. Okay. The biggest one is inferior operator. And I think I've seen a question on the chat before here where somebody asked, what's the most likely reason that you lose a case? It's this first and second one kind of, that we can do better. Cities will say, oh, well, we have a plan and we could do better. Well, that's why it's so important to talk about storage as a retail use. You likely can't do better. Storage thrives in areas where other people can't. One-way streets, back of house, all these sorts of settings that are difficult for other types of retail businesses to work. Wrong location. Too many cities are still thinking that storage should be in industrial districts, and it really shouldn't be because it's a retail land use. In the 20 years I've been doing or more storage cases, the industry's completely changed. In my career, we'd be doing no landscaping, chain link fence, not temperature controlled, probably pretty gaudy colors. And you put it in an industrial district, and your customer is a man that's buying mostly based on price and wants it to be cheap. Now that's a problem. That's the first thing that most people go to, is that vision of storage, maybe in the 1970s or into the 80s. Now the storage user is more likely to be female. They're going to use it just like they do personal service type uses. And they want to be kind of 1 to 3 miles, or certainly not more than 5. And they want it to be just like they want a good retail experience. It needs to be safe, clean, well lit, all of those sorts of things. So wrong location. Often when I hear that, I think, no, this is not an industry that you know very much about anymore. You are somewhere stuck back in the 1980s, potentially. Crime and noise, these are just things people complain about. You hear the same thing in the next one. Traffic. My colleague here, Lee Kleinman, that served 8 years on the Dallas City Council, says zoning cases are about 3 things: traffic, and one other thing. Well, we don't generate traffic. One of the things about storage that we found is just accurate, but it's persuasive, that it generates a lot of taxable value for cities, but doesn't consume city services. Declining property values and the sales tax. Those are both things we have white papers on. So this next slide just kind of overlays on here. We have not just opinions, we have data, facts, studies, like the crime one. We did a study with the former police chief of the city of Dallas on Dallas, when Dallas was #1 in crime, not something you want to be #1 in. But we found out that, our study demonstrates persuasively that storage is not a harbinger of lots of crime in an area. But having facts and having studies defeats anecdotal complaints by neighbors. And this is a key thing that we bring to bear for our clients at the hearing process. Next. Okay, planners. Wow, I'm a planner. I work with lots of planners. We're market-based planners. And that's a huge difference. Most planners in municipal government are, frankly, not market-based. I think that's the first thing that we need to discuss. Second, they work at a place that's not a business. I find often my clients think, well, I have a business and Masterplan is a business and my civil engineer and architect and all these people, these are all businesses, and I'm going to go to the city and that's a business. They are not. They have no imperative they have to make money. And they don't think that way. They are not a business, and the people that work there are not businessmen and women. And so you have to think of them about what they are. They're a bureaucratic governmental organization that doesn't care about your project. They may not be particularly opposed to it, but it's not fundamentally part of their job. Third problem really, I think, gets back to how planning is taught as a discipline in an academic setting. I used to be a faculty member in the University of Texas system. I think I know something about academics, and I'm on a university board. On that board, we really care to make sure that everything we're doing is market-based and that our students are ready to be productive in the companies they go to work in. But planning is a discipline. You have people that take lots of planning classes, and surprisingly, they don't take classes in business, finance, real estate, economics. And so what you see all across America is very academic, theory-based planners who don't work in the market, don't know much about it, and ignore it. And if you're doing planning work and you're ignoring what the market is, you're Blockbuster in a Netflix world. And that's sort of what I call ready, fire, aim. They've decided on the answer without doing any aiming, and it's all theory-based. It's terrible, but we see this just happen all the time. So that lack of interdisciplinary approach is a negative. We have a huge interdisciplinary practice here at Masterplan and be able to call on all these people. The last couple of things, planners are going to say, that, we have a plan and we're going to give the plan time to work. And we'll talk about that in a second, but it's a common problem. Then the last two things, the planners themselves don't stay at the cities very long, so they don't have to be accountable for their bad advice and judgment. And then they practice politics. The P in planning is for politics, and they try to gauge the wind about what elected and appointed officials are saying. So, this is a slide. Von Moltke was a Prussian military theorist who I think people know the expression, maybe not where it comes from. He had the idea that plans rarely survive contact with the enemy. In this instance, city plans rarely survive, and they're not usually written with that in mind. In the US, we have our own thinker who posits that plans, change. And moving on, Mike Tyson, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And I just see over and over, cities are slow to adapt or accept the changing marketplace. The world has changed tremendously because of the introduction of the iPhone. 2007 is like the Gutenberg printing press. And if you are not responsive to that, and most cities are not, you're not market-based. They're still practicing, something else. But you got to be mindful of this. Do not think planners at cities are there to help you. They may be helpful, they may even be nice, but they're not there to help you with your project. Okay, so how do cities work? Well, cities do comprehensive plans that are not, we've talked about, not market-based. What you end up with is, if medicine was practiced like planning, this is what would occur. The surgeon would go out into the waiting room with a group of people that are not trained, that don't have an educational background, nor do they have any of the credentials to do that. Well, that's what planners do. Planners hold neighborhood meetings, and whoever comes is who they get their information from. So at those meetings, you generally have people who are well over 55 years of age. I would say at most of the meetings I've done, the age is over 70. So you've got older people that are not involved in real estate, lending. They're not in the market. They're not trained in it. They're typically not professionals. They just show up and say what they like. And they usually say, We want a better grocery store. We want more sit-down dining, or what goods and services they go to other communities to buy. So for my analogy here, if for storage and really for comp plan planning, what cities do is they got a surgeon goes out there and asks your relative's sick. And one person says, I think we should do heart surgery. The other one says it's the lungs. Someone else says gallbladder. And in the end, they just crowdsource an answer. That's what cities do, but they're doing it with non-professional people. So, junk in, junk out often. I'm not saying citizens shouldn't be part of the process. They certainly should be, but they ought to have help in making good decisions, because if you look at almost every city in America, they have too much retail for the community. We don't need that. Retail now is a storage building with fulfillment that arrives at your door. That's why you've seen changes. Storage is one of those changes. Storage is part of that infill in America for retail users, just like kid services, whether it's tutoring or sports, karate, whatever it is. Those are retail land uses and were maybe 20 years ago. Rationing. Cities love to ration uses they don't like. They don't ration how many grocery stores they have, but gas stations, storage, warehouses, things that are not as cute and fun, they will ration. Here's a picture from just north of Frisco City Hall, where the Dallas Stars, the Star facility is for the Cowboys. That's one of the most affluent areas and fastest growing areas in the United States. Here you have Whataburger next to Wendy's, next to McDonald's. The city's not regulating what the users are doing. They're not regulating hamburgers, but we see this all the time, that cities will say, oh, we have enough storage. They can't account for the fact that occupancy is way over 90%. They just tell you that you have enough. Well, a lot of hamburgers are being eaten. So these are things, and we have other analogies like this we use, but this is just one I think that's kind of fun. Next. Okay, you can win on storage cases. It just takes often the right strategy, right presentation style, dealing with staff successfully. Part of it, though, also requires good-looking buildings. Those have a better chance of winning. These are just some kind of a montage of ones we've done. Next, talk a little bit about this. You can't be Blockbuster in a Netflix world. You've got to be a changing. And there are things that I think the industry can do better. I don't think we need as much glass that shows the roll-up doors. I think storage operators could do with less signage as a sign of good faith. People aren't shopping anymore by driving by. I don't think anybody drives by stores and just stops and rents. They know they're searching on their phone or tablet or whatever. There are some areas that we've been successful in. I'm not saying you shouldn't have signage, you should, but it's appropriate signage, and that's what works. Next, we're very successful. Here's a good case. We did something in Arlington, I guess this summer. Our first neighborhood meeting, we had 200 people there. It was a golf course surrounded on 3 sides by single family homes. Golf course or country club had ceased to function. They just went out of business because of lack of members. And, obviously people that live next to the country club were sad to see it go. By the time we got to city council in Arlington, that's where the Cowboys and the Texas Rangers play, we only had one person speak against us. That's because we had a lot of neighborhood meetings. We had informed them, of what could go there by right. We had worked through these things. We had good development partners that were going to do a mixed use project with us. And we invited people in, and we did all that before we even filed the zoning case. So our community engagement team hands things off to our planning people, and it's a good process and it works. And a lot of it is because it works because we treat people right and we keep people informed. We really are transparent. We do a website for every zoning case. We put up signs with QR codes so people can find it. We do not want neighbors to not be informed. In fact, with storage, I think it's really, you can win cases by getting the community engaged, because most people will understand this is a safe play. Doesn't create crime and traffic. It's a decent tax base item, particularly if it's a storage cube. It gets things out of garages, or cars can park in the garage because you get the storage items with the storage place, etc. There's plenty of things to sell to neighbors. Often they're uninformed. If they don't use storage, they maybe don't understand why people do. People have a tendency to think that about most things on zoning cases. Well, I don't live in an apartment, so you don't need to either. You should buy a house. Well, it's not as easy always. Okay, one of the things that I find, I don't know, maybe disturbing is too hard a term, but surprising, storage developers are hesitant to try hard zoning cases, despite the fact they can immediately improve their cap rate. If you can find a 50-50 opportunity, I think it's worth trying. There's nothing wrong with losing. You know, I've lost a lot of storage cases, but I've won a lot more. So I use sort of the great Cowboys coach Tom Landry as an example. No one thinks he's a bad football coach. He won 2 Super Bowls. He's one of the 10 winningest coaches in NFL history. He's also the 2nd losingest coach. He coached a lot of games. We're not afraid to try cases and lose them. They're 2 good results for our clients. One, we win and they can do what they want, largely the way they want, on budget and on time. That's what we want to do. The second option is that we deduce we're not going to win and we have them punt on 2nd down or on 3rd down. There's no reason to spend bad money after good. But I do think, and I see this all the time, people are not doing enough cases, and they also often are not doing it in as sophisticated a way as multifamily, maybe industrial, other people do their storage cases. And that's the reason maybe that you're not winning as often. Next. Here's an example of a super high barrier entry city in a very affluent Texas community. We did a nice project for public storage. It took us more than a year to get this done. It's good materials. We did a lot of landscaping, and that's one of the things that helped get it over the finish line. There'll never be another storage user approved there. I just don't think there's any chance that it will be. So if you can find one of these locations where you can hit a home run, it's worth trying. Next. Mixed use. I don't feel, if you look at where the red tag is, that's a CubeSmart deal surrounded in Dallas. This is near Southern Methodist University. We've got a variety of sort of from the right to the left, medical office and bank. Then you have the storage, which is behind a 7-Eleven, multifamily, and then some retail, old strip retail. So we did all of these. They were all for different users. The retail is the only thing that was there originally. So we've created this, and this storage is great. That's a 1 floor subgrade, and then 4 or 5 floors of storage cube there. Very high end, has wine storage too. I think there's more room for storage in a mixed use environment. It shares parking well because it's such a low generator of parking demand, that it works well with restaurants and other high demand users. All right, last, I just want to talk a little bit about the Milrose and Masterplan and Permit Advisor and McCormick, our approach to permitting. We're doing permitting all across the country. And we're doing something nationally that most of the time had been done by permit expediters. And I don't think that's really the term we see. We believe this is a separate discipline, just like you have the contractors, that's a discipline, construction, architect, that's a discipline, structural engineering, discipline, civil engineering, discipline, etc. The permitting and the associated project management of it is a professional service that should be done by people who just do that. That's one of the reasons why we're successful. this slide, the Music Man, if you've seen the Music Man movie or the musical, the famous Professor Harold Hill has that song where they're on the train and they talk about you've got to know the territory. We know the territory. We also know the territory all over the United States now. We've built Gantt charts for all of these cities. So we have a step-by-step, a playbook for how is Houston different than Dallas. In Dallas, the civil side takes 6 or more months, demanding that you get it started even before you think about your permitting. So that's that second stage, pre-development. Because we have that ability and experience in all these municipalities, we understand when to start and what the sequence is. Third, we see that people submit the old school expediter just gets a set of plans and drops it off at the city. That's not what we're doing. The plans come in from the architect. There's no way that these architects can know every single jurisdiction. They all have different requirements. So we send the plans through our car wash, and out comes a smaller set, often with sort of cliff notes for reviewers to help them understand what they're reviewing. We're not just dropping them off, we're guiding them through. This is what you're seeing. The fourth thing, and we think makes us really adept, is we were already good at electronic filing before the pandemic, and we're doing things online before that. Whether you're using Asana or with Pulley, we track all these projects where clients can see where we are, and all our partners in the various disciplines are put together. Now, the last couple of points, we still have great humans. That human element is important, and relationships. We have people in the firm that worked at a municipality more than 30 years. They have great relationships. So those come to bear, though, later in the process. And it's effective when you're asking for maybe a favor or applying pressure to not have to do it on every issue. You want to save your gunpowder, keep it dry until you really need it. And then last, here at Masterplan, we have professional lobbyists and former elected appointed officials that they sometimes get involved when technical matters are not working and pressure needs to be applied, and lobbying is the answer. So it's this fully integrated end-to-end service that provides solutions for clients. It's not just expediting. I mean, sure, we absolutely believe in faster and easier. That's what we want to do for the clients. We want them to go faster, and we want their process to be easier. We've built, in many ways, we're still a family business, and we're a family of businesses at Milrose, where we take care of the client and the rest takes care of itself. So we would appreciate an opportunity to talk to you about what the options are and the services we have and how we price all those things. You'll see here, please reach out to me. I'm Dallas at masterplantexas.com. My phone numbers are here. I'd love an opportunity to get to talk to you, whether it's about storage or other multifamily, industrial, medical. We've assembled an extremely talented team of people that are competent, they're confident, they're competitive, and we know we get hired to produce a result. We're okay with that pressure. In fact, we really embrace it. So I appreciate the opportunity to provide this podcast. It'll be up. You'll see there are other podcasts on the Masterplan YouTube page, Masterplan Texas YouTube page. And thank you for tuning in.